Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the 26 Xamarin Android tutorial. And in this video, guys, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at customizing our very own action bar. Okay, so the action bar is something that's been around for a while in Android, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the details of what it is. So let's jump into the project that we're going to be working towards, okay? So as you see here, we have a custom action bar, okay? And this application is meant to mimic the phone application in our Android devices. So something familiar for you guys to look at is always good to work towards, okay? So as you can see, each layout has its own press state and its focus state, okay? And all of these are image views and they're linear layouts that hold the image views and the text views, okay? So it's totally a custom image view. Now it's pretty simple, but once you are done with this tutorial, hopefully you will have a good idea of how to make custom views for your action bar and therefore be able to really customize it further with your own views, okay? So let's dive in, guys. Let's get started. All right, so I'm going to close out of this and let's start a new project, okay? So let's go into the Android tab and let's select a blank app and we'll call it custom action bar tutorial, okay? And the first thing we want to do, guys, is we want to come over to our properties, double click on that, and let's change our minimum to 15, okay? And that's just so the emulator will run, but you may not have to do this, but that's what I'm going to change it to, the API level of 15 for the minimum Android to target, okay? Close out of that. And get that out of the way. The first thing we're going to want to do, guys, is we're going to want to make a custom view that we're going to set onto our action bar, okay? So let's come over here and let's go into our layout folder and let's create a new AXML file. And let's just call it action bar, okay? All right, so we have a blank AXML file, okay? Now remember what I said, the action bar that you saw just had 4 linear layouts that were stacked horizontally, okay? So the first thing we're gonna wanna do is this is the linear layout that's gonna be the parent, okay? So we're gonna wanna change this to stack its children horizontally, okay? So horizontal. Now the next thing we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna add 4 more linear layouts to this linear layout, add this children, okay? So then these linear layouts are going to stack its children, which is going to be the image view and the text view vertically, okay? So let's go ahead and add that. All right, so now we have 4 linear layouts, all right? And notice, the first thing you may notice is how skinny they are, okay? So it's basically just wrapping the content and it doesn't know the width of how wide it should be, okay? So let's further specify that inside of our source code, all right? Notice the width is wrapping content, okay? And that's why it's so skinny over here, because there's actually no content inside of it, okay? But we want to specify the width explicitly. So the way that we do that, one way to do that is to come into our parent of the linear layouts, which is just another linear layout. And we want to specify the weight sum, okay? And we've done the weight sum before, but if you're not familiar with it or if you've forgotten, the weight sum is essentially the maximum the children of that view can hold, okay? So think of this as a percentage. So we have, this is 100%, okay? Which makes sense, the view can hold 100%. And then inside, each child is gonna give a weight to tell how much weight it should take up. And whether it applies to width or height depends on whether it's the view specifying the weight sum is a horizontal linear layout or a vertical, okay? So since it's horizontal, the width is what is applicable, okay? And if it was vertical, then the height, the layout weight would apply to the height if this was vertical, all right? So let's go ahead and take that out and let's add the layout weight, okay? So this is how much the width it should take up of its parent linear layout, okay? And that's 25, okay? So you can think of that as 25% of the width of the total parent linear layout, okay? So that's essentially specifying the width, and because of that, we can set this to now 0, okay? because now this is actually applying to the total width. And remember the width because it's inside of a horizontal which stacks left to right. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that for the next 3 linear layouts. Okay, let's go back into our designer and see. Now we can see, guys, that each linear layout is equally sharing the width, okay, which is just 25%, okay? And of course that adds up to 100%, which is what we specified over here, okay? And 100, it doesn't have to be 100. It can be like 56, you know, but it's easier to work with 100 as, of course, if you're thinking of it as a percentage, all right? So that's why I do 100 right there, but you can do anything else that works for you, okay? You just have to make sure that the total adds up to the weight sum here of the children, okay? So the next thing we want to do, guys, is we're going to want to add some stuff inside of each linear layout, okay? So the linear layout is going to take a image view and it's going to take a text view, okay? So now what we want to do is we want to come over here and we want to add an image view, and let's come down here and we want to add a text view, okay? And over here, notice that the height is match parent, okay? So it's matching the parent's height, which is why it extends all the way down. But we actually want to change that. We want to change it to actually do the wrap content, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay. And we'll do, you know what, actually we'll leave that to match parent, okay? And we'll specify the height explicitly over here, okay? And I'll explain further why we're going to specify it to 75. But for now, we're going to explicitly set it to 75 dp, okay? And notice that I'll shrink it down here. And this will still match the parent, which is now a lot shorter, okay? That's an easier way to do it. We'll just do that inside of the parent view, and then the children will all inherit that, okay? All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to actually add the image view to the rest of our other linear layouts, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go over here, add our image view to that, the third one, and then the fourth one. And let's come over here and we will set our text view inside of here. You can also do it inside of the document outline, which is a little easier sometimes. And there. All right, so now we're seeing it come together. We have an image view inside of here, and we have some text inside of here, okay? And just to save some time, guys, I'm going to go ahead and add the drawables, which are the phone that you saw, the keypad and all that. I'm going to add those, okay? But I'm going to pause the video while I add that, just to save some time, since that's just adding it from here. And I will make sure to include those icons, those PNGs, inside of here. But adding it is not something it's pretty trivial, so I'm not going to waste time doing that, okay? Okay, so the drawables have been added, as you see here. Okay, and now all we want to do is we want to set each image view to a drawable, okay? So the easy way to do that is go to source, and it will open up a resources folder, and we can easily just select from here, okay? So the first one we're going to want to do is, of course, the dial pad, all right? And the second one, we're going to want to do a phone. Then the next one we'll do is the favorite icon. And finally, the last one we'll do is the group, okay? All right, so now that we have those, let's go ahead and next set our text, okay? Which all our text was, let's see, we'll do keypad there. Oops, that's text size. I'll do keypad there. And we will do log here. Favorite here. And finally, we'll do contacts here. Okay. And now to center it, each of these, we want to set its gravity, okay? And the gravity is going to be applicable to, we mainly care about the horizontal, okay? Since the horizontal is what we're worried about, okay? Because we want to center it horizontally, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now, and that'll shift it over to the middle. We will do that for the next one. Oops. Center horizontal. All right, so that's going to center our text and just make it look nice. All right. And for now, we're going to leave that alone, okay? So we want to specify a selector, okay? And remember, the selector in Android is what takes care of like the selecting as you push, then the state becomes pressed and it changes the background, and as it becomes focused, it changes the background to another specified color, okay? So what we're going to do there is we're actually going to make another XML file, not an AXML, but just an XML file. And we'll just call it selector. Okay? And just to save some time, guys, I'll go ahead and copy and paste this over from the project that we had in the selector in the other project. And I will cover this. So basically, we are stating that our first item, if it's pressed, okay, if the actual item is pressed, to change it to this color, okay? And if it is focused, to change it to this color. And these are all kind of shades of blue. So if it's focused, which means it's not pressed, but it's focused on this tab, then we want to have it highlight this color. And then finally, since there's no statement here on this item, this is our default, okay? And we always want to make sure that our default in a selector is specified last, okay? Because what Android does is it selects the first. If this is nothing, it'll always select this one first, okay? So we don't have any attributes set here. We don't state focused, or we don't specify state pressed. So here, this will always execute first, okay? So if it was at the top, if it was the first one specified, if it was like this, then Android would always come in and it'll select this one first. So then nothing else, because this is essentially true, since nothing is specified, and these will never be activated, okay? So our default, which is the one that we don't specify anything, we always want to put last, okay? So if you don't know that, you can start tearing your hair out because you're like, why isn't this working? And that could be one reason, guys. So make sure you set that last, okay? So this is our pressed, it'll turn this color. If it's focused, it'll turn this color, and then by default, it'll be this color. Okay, guys? All right, so that's all that we need to do in that XML file, okay? So now that we want to come over here, and we want to specify our linear layout, okay? And for me, sometimes a document outline, just a tip, sometimes a document outline kind of goes away. I'm not sure why. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to close out the file and then come back in here and then reload it and it'll come back, okay? That's if you want the outline. If not, then it's not really a big deal. But just something that I have to do once in a while. I'm not sure if that's Visual Studio's problem or Xamarin's. Anyhow, so we want to come into here now, right, guys? And we want to select the background, okay? And notice our background, our selector is inside of here now to be selected, okay? We could also set this in code, but the designer saves us some time. So we'll go ahead and set that, okay? And notice that it set it to our default color, okay? Remember in the selector we had our default color, and it set it's that. So it knew before even compiling or anything that it knew that it was going to, that this is the correct color to have, okay? So it does a really good job at that, all right? And once again, this kind of went away. So let me see if I can select it from here. That's that one. All right, so now we want to set the background to here. So we want to set it to all the selectors. We want them to act the same, okay? And the third one, let's set the background to selector, and then finally the last one, okay? And hopefully guys, at this point, we can see it sort of coming together, okay? Now we have this and we have all this going on, and it's starting to come along, okay? We still need to do some things like such as the padding's off and the text is kind of getting cut off. So we do have some kind of fixing to do and some last minute things that we need to do, okay? But it is coming along, okay? The first thing that we want to do, let me go ahead and close that out so this comes back up. The first thing we want to do, guys, is the next thing is we want to set the padding to 0, okay? All right, so that's just if there's any padding right here, we want to set it to 0. And this isn't really necessary as of right now, but I like to do it just to make sure that there is no padding on it, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and set the padding to all of these linear layouts. And 0 dp. Okay, so all the padding is now gone, okay? And now the next thing we want to do is we're going to want to come over to the code and we're going to want to set the actual Android to this file, okay? So we're going to want to come into our main activity and we can get rid of the template code. And when we run it, guys, we should be able to see some problems, okay? So we might see some things, but it still should work but does not look very good, okay? So let's go ahead and, but we will fix that problem, okay? But I like to sort of incrementally build stuff. That way we can see, we don't just see the finished product right away, but we see some problems and then we can fix it, because if the finished product is shown right away, we don't really learn as much through trial and error, okay? So this is just one thing I like to do. And what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm setting up the action bar to be shown, okay? So what we want to do here is we want to actually set the custom view, which is our action bar that we created, our custom view, okay? And then we want to set its display show custom enabled. So we want it to show the custom view instead, okay? Instead of this right here, okay? So we have set display home, display show home enabled, okay? So this one we want to set to false, okay? So we want to say, hey, don't show any of the default stuff, okay? That's all we're doing there. Set display show titled enabled, and we don't want to show that, okay? So here's all the stuff that we need to specify, okay? And there is going to be a better way to do this, guys, but I want to show you this way so you know when we do the better way, you know more of a reason why we're doing it that way, okay? Let's go ahead and let this build. Okay, so we see our action bar is here, okay? But there are some problems, okay? At first glance, it might look okay. But one, when we click on it, the selector is not working. We're not getting any kind of response from it, okay? Like we should. Remember, we have the state pressed and state focused. And like an example that I showed you in the beginning of the tutorial, we're not getting that, okay? So that's one problem. The second problem is that the text is getting cut off, okay? So that's yet another problem, all right? So let's go ahead and let's work on the text getting cut off, okay? And the reason why it's doing that is because, yeah, in the designer it somewhat shows, but in reality, once it's in runtime, the action bar is a different size and it gets cut off, okay? Because remember, we explicitly set it here to 75 dp, okay? So what we want to do next, guys, is we actually want to override a theme, okay? So we want to take a theme and then we want to override its action bar, all right? So we've gone a little into this, but this is actually a good opportunity that we have coming up that we can learn how to override some custom views, okay? And it's going to be pretty lightweight, but it's going to be a good opportunity to learn how to do this nonetheless, okay? So let's make a XML file called themes, okay? And what we want to do is we want to create a style, okay? And we'll just name it custom action bar theme, okay? Then the next thing we want to do is we want to actually inherit from a parent, okay? And the way we do that, and this is built in, this isn't something that I created, okay? This is actually a built-in theme that we can override, okay? And we can do holo light, and we'll do dark action bar. Okay, so we are overriding, or we are inheriting from this theme, okay? Now, anything that we specify as an item, we can now override, and anything we don't specify will remain untouched and the same, okay? A lot like you override a class. Any method you override will now execute your code, where anything you don't override that can be override but you just don't will still act just as normal as if nothing happened, okay? So we want to override the action bar style, okay? And where we set that is in between these two, the greater than, less than signs. We want to actually set what that style is that we want to specify, okay? So then we'll do @style my action bar. And we have not yet created that, okay? So it's going to be our own action bar inside of here, okay? And the last thing we want to do is we want to close off this, okay? Close it off here. All right, so now that we have our custom action bar theme, our custom theme, and we're overriding the action bar style, we need a my action bar, okay? We've specified that it's @style, okay? So we're just gonna make another style, and we already named it my action bar, so let's make sure that correlates. And once again, guys, we're going to inherit from a built-in style, okay? And what we're gonna inherit from is widget.halo.light action bar .solid .inverse. And this is just one of the many things that you can inherit from, okay? And the next thing we want to do is, once again, we want to override some stuff, okay? And the first thing we want to override is the height, okay? And we want to set the height to 75 dp, okay? And that's the reason why we set the 75 dp inside of here, okay? So now that we override it, once we override in here, we know for sure that the action bar will be of this height. Therefore, we can code along this assuming that, okay? So now that we have that assumption, we know that's going to be that, we can now use that, okay? So we know that it's 75 now because we were the ones that overrode it. And the next thing we can do is we can actually set the background of it. And we can do a lot of other stuff, but what we're going to do in this is we're going to override the background, okay? And what we want to do is we want to set the background to transparent, okay? So 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So this is transparent, right? And then as for the alpha, we want to add 2 more, and this will represent this byte right here, okay? Will represent the alpha, okay? So we want to set that to 0, all right? So the next thing we want to do is we want to close that off. Okay. Close that. All right, so now that we have our style, we can come back over here and we can actually set it, okay? But it looks like we have a little bit of an error. Let's see if we can find where it's at. And it could be because I specified halo instead of holo, so maybe I have too much games in my mind. So that's definitely something that we want to change. So change that to holo. And another thing we want to do, guys, is we want to change this to resources, okay? Because this is going to be a resource. All right, so let's go ahead and change that to resources. And there we go. And that seems to be the error that it was talking about, okay? So now that we have that, we have our custom action bar theme. The way we can set it is through here, okay? So we can come into here, and you can actually set it inside the manifest just like you would in like Android Studio or Eclipse. But in Xamarin, it's pretty nice. You can add some of these that will set it for you, okay? So this just makes it a little easier, all right, guys? And what we can do is we do comma and theme, all right? And we can just set it just here, okay? So we'll do at style custom action bar theme. Okay, so that will set our theme for this activity, not for the whole application. We can do that inside the manifest, but it'll actually, since there's only going to be one activity, we'll go ahead and set it to the activity. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, guys, and let's make sure that everything's working the way we expect it to, at least in this case, the height. So remember last time the action bar was cutting off our text views, okay? All right, so now we have something that looks a lot more like the designer, okay? So the designer is showing the text view, but it is still cut off in the designer, okay? So now we can assume now that the action bar, the XML file is what needs to be fixed now, since it's actually showing very close to what it, at runtime, that is what it is in the designer, okay? So that's always nice. Now we can come into here and we need to make a few changes, all right? And one of those changes is going to be the scale type, okay? So we want to come into and click on our image view. And we want to scroll down to where we can find the scale type, okay? And we want to fit that center, okay? And let's do that for the next three. Fit center. And you can change these to a few other different things, like center crop. That'll make it like, so it'll change it around, but we're going to use fit center. And these are all values that if you'd like to play around with, guys, don't worry, it's not going to break anything. Just check out how it looks and find the scale type that you like, or any kind of other view. All right. So let's go into here, and the next thing we want to do for the image view is we want to set it to adjust view bounds to false. Okay. These are just properties that I like to set for the image views, okay? Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to now set the weight sum to the linear layouts of each one, okay? So the linear layouts, we're actually going to want to specify the height that they should take up. So the linear layout, what we want to do is we want to, for each one, the linear layouts we're talking about is for each one, okay? So we want to come into our linear layout, okay? And we want to actually specify a weight sum for its children, okay? So let's come into here and we can do, let's do Android weight sum equals 100. And we want to actually explicitly set the height of its children, which is the image view and the text view, okay? So let's go ahead and do this, set these to 0. And what we can do in here is we can actually set the weight to be 30 and the weight of the image view to be 70. Okay, so all this is saying is since it's a vertical, it is applicable to the height now, okay? Whereas this one was a horizontal, so its children was applicable, its direct children was applicable to the width, okay? But now it's to the height, so now the height is going to be affected. So this is saying take up 70% of height of your parent, and this is saying take up 30% of the height of your parent, okay? And now you can see that it actually comes out nicely, and then no longer there's this cutoff, okay? And we could change around, you can mess around with these values, but the 70-30 seems to work out nicely, okay? So the next thing we want to do is we want to do that for the next three linear layouts, okay? And all in its children as well, okay? So let's come into here and we will specify that. We'll, just to save some time, we'll copy and paste that over here. And the text view, okay? Now we want to come up to here and then pull this out. We want to specify the weight to be 70. And then finally we want to set the height, since that is no longer applicable to that. Well, it's applicable, but it's not going to take this value anymore. It's going to go off the weight value now, okay? So then we can set the height of each one to 0, like we've done in the past, and 0. Okay, and then finally for each linear layout, we've already done it for the first one, right? The first one we've set the weight sum to be 100, and we want to set that now for the next 3 linear layouts. Okay. Okay, so let's go back into Designer, and let's make sure it looks like we're getting an error. Okay. Let's take a look at that, okay? All right, so now it looks like I might have cut off a quote, so that jacked up the whole file, okay? So hopefully that was a problem. All right, looks good, okay? So now all of the linear layouts are distributing their height evenly, okay, for a 70-30 ratio. All right, let's go ahead and now run it and make sure that it looks the same at runtime. And notice, look closely right there, okay? So, okay, it looks good right here, guys, but let's go ahead and run it one more time, okay? And when we run it one more time, look closely at the action bar. See how it's the icon and it's before the custom one loads up, okay? All right, see that? So it had some text right there, and it had the Android icon right before it loaded up, okay? And the reason for that, guys, is because we are specifying not to show that right here, right? So once that's what that stops it from showing, okay? But we still see it for like a split second. For like half a second, we see it. And then once our custom view loads, then it'll show, okay? So that's really, that's kind of annoying for me. It's a little bit of a pet peeve to see something that's loading and then, or to see a default view and then our custom view then comes in, and that's a lot what happens with custom views. So that's a little annoying to see, right? I mean, to see actually that first. And the reason why it's happening is because we're actually setting it to false here, but at compile time, it doesn't know about this, okay? We're setting it inside of the code, okay? So at runtime, it comes in and it says, oh, you want to make this false? Then it pulls away, but at that time, we've already seen it for like a half a second. So it sets it to false, but it's already too late. We've already seen it. And then it sets the custom view. Okay, so the reason why is because this is happening at runtime where it's already compiled and it thinks that it's going to be the default view until it runs this code. Okay, so basically it's just running too late. And the question is, how do we fix that? How do we stop it from showing that for a split second? And it's actually really easy to do. However, knowing you do it can be a little tricky, and it could be something that you're pulling your hair out and like, why is this happening? You're trying everything you can, but you can't figure it out, okay? And it's actually just one line inside of our theme, okay? So remember our action bar, which inherits from this action bar. What we want to do is we want to actually specify the display options, okay? And what these display options are going to do is let us know, let the program know that we want to display the home button and we want to display the logo, and this is all the stuff that we want to display. But in this case, we don't want to display anything. So let's set that to here, and that's essentially what this code is doing right here. Okay, so it's setting it to false. Don't display the home, enabled, the show title, don't display that. Okay, but since it's at runtime, it's actually a little too late. And that's why we see it for a split second. So we can actually now delete this code, guys, because it's going to be taken care of in here. And it'll be taken care of properly, and we'll never see that icon and that text because at compile time, this theme is already applied. So it knows not to ever show the logo and the text, okay? And it looks like we got a little bit of an error. Got a little ahead of myself. Specify the Android. Okay, so now what should happen is now it should happen the same thing, but for that split second that we saw the icon, it shouldn't be there anymore. Now we should just see nothing and it goes and straight into our custom view. Okay, so just in case you didn't see that, let's take another second out just to be sure. Look right here and look for anything that you see like an icon or anything. Awesome. Okay, so now that's gone, and that's because we specify it here in our theme. So at compile time, before it even runs, it already knows to set this theme. Therefore, it never shows that. Okay. So remember that display options, and then inside of this of the two tags, just leave that blank, and that's just saying that you don't want to display the home and you don't want to display the title. Leave it blank. Okay. So that's just something that you can really tear your head on, but once you see it, you're like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. But it's just kind of one of those things that you just got to know what to put in the correct spot. Okay. Let's run this one more time. And what we want to do is we want to set the selectors. Okay. And we to be pressed and focused, but it's not working. Why isn't that working? And what's happening is the linear layouts are not set to clickable. All right. So we want to set that to let it know that they are in fact clickable, and they are also focusable. So they can grab focus, and they are focusable in touch mode. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's do this for the next 3 linear layouts. So all of these properties, let's go ahead and set to each linear layout. Okay. All right, so now those are all clickable, okay? However, this may still give you problems because the image view and the text view are something that might take up the focus, okay? So let's run it yet another time, and let's ensure that it's working properly. Okay. So now it's working properly, okay? And in some cases, guys, just to give you a warning, sometimes that it's, even if you do all that, it's still not going to grab focus the way you want it to. And when you're working with a linear layout, it's possible that if you like had a button or an image button or something that is clickable by default, that's taking up the focus, okay? It's eating up the pressed. So the linear layout never gets it, okay? So just if you are ever in that situation, what you want to do, if you're like, hey, I don't care if this stuff's clicked, I want the whole linear layout to be clicked. One thing to try is to set the clickable to false here, if it's like say a button that's eating up the focus, and to set the focus property to false as well, okay? And hopefully that could be a remedy to a problem that could be pretty ambiguous of why it's not working, okay? But in this case, this is an image view, and this is a text view, so they're not eating up in the focus, and it's working properly the way that we expect. All right, so that is the end of our tutorial, guys, and I hope that you have a good understanding now of how to implement a custom action bar, and hopefully we've went over some of the pitfalls that you could fall upon when creating something like the custom action bar. And one of those is the default view coming up for a split second then disappearing. And remember that in the theme, we can just set the display options to nothing, and that should take care of that problem, okay? So, and in the next tutorial, what I want to do is I want to go into another designer, and I want to go into the drawer layout, okay? And the drawer layout is something that's very common with Android, and it's something that's been adopted into many applications. So I believe that it's something important to go over, and I will try to do that in the next tutorial, going over and implementing a drawer layout, okay? As always, thanks for watching, guys.